Welcome back. Panelists here. Hugh Hewitt, host on the Salem Radio Network. Heather McGee, a veteran of presidential campaigns past and a senior fellow at the progressive think tank Demos. And we have two reporters from Politico who write our network's second favorite newsletter in the morning, Playbook. Anna Palmer, senior Washington correspondent, and senior writer Jake Sherman. And more importantly, Jake and Anna are the authors of the very readable new book, The Hill to Die On. The Hill, of course, being Capitol Hill. We're going to get to your book in a little bit. But this is the longest interview I've had with Mayor Pete. Heather, this is your side of the spectrum. How do you do? What did you think?
I think he did great. He's a very impressive person, right? He's a Rhodes Scholar. He went to Harvard. He's a Navy veteran. He's a year younger than me, and he's already run a city.
Yeah.
All very.
And what do you mean? He's 10 years younger than me, and I'm like going, what the hell have I done? Yeah.
But I think right now we're in the moment where we're finding out who is Pete. I think next we need to find out what's he going to do for American families, right? Because voters are interested right now in the biography and all of that. What they want to know is, how will you change the life of my children? How will you help me afford college, retirement, that kind of thing? We're at a real breaking point in this country, and I think people need to see that there's going to be demonstrable change in their shot at the American dream, and that's why they're asking candidates for platforms. That's something that's not yet part of his story. It's not yet on his website. What are his ideas?
The path to the presidency goes through the Rust Belt in the Midwest. It will this time. He's of the Rust Belt.
The best profile I've read about him said he has deindustrialization of the Midwest in his bones, and I think that's true. This was another hurdle crossed for Mayor Pete. I've been following it very closely. He worries me. From a Republican standpoint, I would like to have 20 Democrats on the stage with 5% each. Right now, it's going to be Bernie Sanders is, the front runner by money, and you've got the vice president, and then you've got this rocket ship coming up. And the ability to give a good interview and to hold the attention of the American people. I always said Donald Trump is the very best interview in America because he holds the attention of the audience, and he remains the very best interview in America, but I think Mayor Pete might give him a run.
So the other end of the age spectrum, guys, is Joe Biden. It is interesting to me, and Dan Balls tackled that this morning, Anna, about this, and it gets us to Biden, right? He literally is a 21st century Democrat.
Right.
And we're having this debate about whether Biden's 21st century enough.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you saw Pete Buttigieg really lean into the fact that his age, in drawing a very stark contrast subtly in that interview that
what
you
did he say?
just had with him.
2054, I'll be the same age as the president.
Exactly. And I think what you see on the Biden front, and clearly for the last week plus, is just kind of, it feels like he needs to put some little oil in the machine there in terms of what the response is, how slow it was. Is he made for the campaign of 2020? Right now, I think there's some big questions there.
I think he hasn't gotten in, which is stunning to me. I mean, if he were in the race, Joe Biden, and we're out giving stump speeches every day, he would be able to talk about something else besides these allegations, or at least he could address it and move on. He's not in the race for reasons that are not clear to me, and it gives a vacuum for someone like Mayor Pete to get in and to shape the dialogue, shape the debate, and say, we need somebody of this generation.
So he's still leading, the latest polls average 7 points.
He being Joe Biden.
He being Joe Biden.
Yep.
And I think the reason is this sense of electability, right? In a USA Today poll, Democratic primary voters said by 20 points, I'd rather have someone who will win than someone who wants the country that I want, who has the same ideology as me. That's huge. That's about the nightmare of not wanting to wake up to an electoral college victory from Donald Trump again. But I think we need to change what we think of as electable. We have voted in this country for change, for disrupting the status quo every time we've had the chance, basically, since the financial crash. And I don't think that Joe Biden represents the kind of change, particularly that younger voters, who are the biggest bloc in 2020, need to see.
I want to go back just to one more thing Mayor Pete told you. He would enter the White House with more military experience than any president since George H.W. Bush. That's true unless Seth Moulton gets in which case they're tied, both 9/11 veterans. That's impressive. Every American ought to respect that, even if they're not going to vote for him. That sets him apart from everybody else on the Democratic platform, even Bernie, who is ahead in money and, I think, enthusiasm. It's just worth noting and deserves respect.
I'm curious. Matthew Continetti at the Washington Free Beacon wrote something interesting comparing Buttigieg to the rest of the field, and he writes this: I find Mayor Pete far less interesting than what he reveals about the Democratic field. He's upstaged the Washington senators Warren, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, Kirsten Gillibrand, Cory Booker, and perhaps Michael Bennet, who have been dreaming of this moment for years. He's enjoying his 15 minutes because even the most talented of these elected officials has yet to stand out. Is fair shot, Jake?
Yes, absolutely. I think voters don't want Washington. I mean, we saw that with Donald Trump.
Is that the worst name you can have as senator?
I would think that's probably right? I mean, this guy has run a city city, he has a story to tell that doesn't include going to the floor of the Senate for cloture votes. That's an important thing, I think.
I don't think he'd say the word cloture either.
I think that's probably right.
But don't you think also, Americans love the underdog. The media loves the underdog. He comes in to the race. I don't think anybody took him very seriously, thinking he was going to be a top contender at all. And so, he's kind of this rocket ship, as you said. And it's just wondering, can he keep that momentum? That's the big question I have.
I want to switch a little bit, which is and Frank Bruni got to this, where apparently even Mayor Pete's being criticized. Is he gay enough? Or Kamala Harris, is she black enough? This argument that's going on in the party, perhaps, here's Barack Obama. Let's play President Obama on this yesterday, believe it or not, and see what he said about this.
And one of the things I do worry about sometimes among progressives in the United States, maybe it's true here as well, is a certain kind of rigidity where we say, I'm sorry, this is how it's going to be, and then we start sometimes creating what's called a circular firing squad.
Heather, I thought Stacey Abrams the other day said, she's like, there's the line that everybody's searching for is forgiveness with accountability. And that seems to be what is the struggle. What does that look like? Forgiveness plus accountability.
Yeah, I think it's very important, right? We are right now evolving what the Democratic Party is. People who do focus groups and public opinion polls say all the time, Republicans, very defined. People know what they're voting for with Republicans. With Democrats, you basically have to have everyone else. So what you're seeing right now with this huge primary, with these debates about identity, is a recognition that identity shapes your experience in this country. For most people, how you look, your identity, who you love, shapes how people treat you and the circumstances that you have. And so it does matter.
Is President Obama right, though? Could this get too rigid on the left?
Absolutely. It's extremely rigid on the right. I mean, you have people, losing their, not able to talk about being anything other than, pro, as Mayor Pete said, nuclear weapons in the streets, right? The sort of Second Amendment fundamentalism on the right wing is very strong. At the same time, I do think these are important debates. And I think people want to know what they're going to do for the country.
All right. Thank you. We're going to pause it here. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.